Welcome, ladies and gents, my name is Curci, and today we're going to talk about Mad Max and why it's a game that is just going with the motion. It's very standard procedure. It's a phrase that I used a lot during the review of the game because I wanted to find a phrase that accurately depicts what this game is all about and what you would expect when you play it. But before we actually get really into that, I actually want to talk about what Mad Max is. Mad Max is one of those games that actually takes a movie license but doesn't make a video game out of a movie that happened. It doesn't have to stick to the narrative that was in one of the previous movies, but it actually takes the inspiration of the world around it. Something Shadow of Mordor also does with Lord of the Rings. It takes the universe that is in the films, that is in the literature, and it creates a game in which you can play and do your thing in. Mad Max is no different. Mad Max recreates the post-apocalyptic world of Earth. All the bodies of water have dried up and it's just one giant desert and you would basically have to go out there and survive. But I love the survival aspect of this game where you have to manage some of the resources that you have. For example, you have a container of water that is always on you. You basically always have to refill it, but you always have to ask yourself the question of, do I want to drink the water now and replenish my health? Or do I want to wait until maybe I get into a sticky situation where I'm going to wish that I had all the water that I have now? Now, water in this game can be few and far between, where you can not see water for a while. Then you have to go out searching for it because you are really needing it. Because your health is low and your container is all dried up, so you basically have to go out and find water so that you can survive. But there are other ways of replenishing your health. You can find food in different areas. You can find them in scavenger locations. You can find them in camps. And a lot of times it's that same question of like, you can't just pick up food and carry it around with you and then pull it out whenever you need it. You can choose to eat food as soon as you find it, or you can just ignore it and maybe you can double back and grab it then. Because you'll get more health out of food than you'll get out of water. And water is more resourceful because it's the one thing that you can carry with you that will replenish your health. So like, let's just say, for example, I'm running out, I'm in like the middle of nowhere and I just got like hit by like, I don't know, a car. So you're going to want to use that water then because you're not going to see food for a while. But if you're inside of a camp and you're losing health, you might not want to use that water because that water is going to probably come in handy. So you might want to wait until you find food. These are the kind of things that you have to really think about in this game. These are the survival elements that are in this game. And that's the kind of stuff that I liked. It is a dog-eat-dog world. It's a world that is always trying to kill you. And it's not just the fact that the environment is trying to kill you, which, by the way, let's talk about the storms really quick. The storms in this game are gotta be one of the most ferocious things that I've ever seen in a video game. I may be exaggerating a little bit, but it's really a very intense experience. Where like you could be driving down the road and then the game informs you that a storm is incoming and you look around a little bit and you can see there's just a bunch of dust clouds and they're coming right for you. But once you get into that storm, wind picks up, the volume of the game just skyrockets. You see like little pieces of debris flying around, larger pieces of debris that slam into your car and do damage, and then it hits you and you're knocking all over the place. There were times where lightning struck my car, did a lot of damage, and then I basically had to stop, and then there was a whole bunch of other debris that smacked into it. Whenever your car gets damaged, it gives you like a limited time to leave your car before it explodes. But when you get out, your buddy Chumbucket, very useful character, not a great like personality wise, but he's good as a sort of like, he's useful. But he'll jump out and he'll repair your car, and while that's happening, you gotta try to find a way to not die in a storm. I haven't survived many storms, but the ones that I did survive were because I was inside of an encampment or inside of some sort of shelter. Because a lot of times you might have to just hide yourself inside of a pipe until the storm passes because it's so intense. When I'm out there in a storm trying to drive around and trying to find little giant scrap containers that fly around, because those have like hundreds of units of scrap, and that's incredible because scrap is one of the more useful things you're going to look for in the game, adding to the whole survival aspect of the game, where you need to use scrap as like your currency. That's how you upgrade your car. That's how you upgrade Max himself. So scrap is extremely useful. You're going to want to go for it every chance you get. So when you are in a storm and you do see one of these scrap containers rolling around, you're probably going to want to go and collect the stuff. But beyond Mother Nature and the other survival aspects, the other things that are trying to kill you are the other inhabitants of the world. Some are willing to help you, like Chumbucket. Chumbucket's willing to help you. But then there are others that are like part of the war faction that controls the region. There are more kind of crazed or feral people. It's a world that is always trying to kill you. And I just think that that just captures exactly what Mad Max is all about. It is a very brutal world, and this is how we survive in it. But the other thing that's really great about Mad Max is the vehicle gameplay. I love the vehicle gameplay in this game. I love the resource management that you have to use for scrap and where to best put upgrades on the Magnum Opus, which is the name of your car. You can customize it to your best look. Let's be like, okay, I like this body, I like this color, I want to put these decals on it. But then like other upgrades, you can put spikes on it, so every time somebody tries to jump on your car, car, he'll impale himself. You can put like little pieces of armor on it so that whenever somebody hits you, you don't take as much damage. Put a ram on the front so when you drive into people, you do the most damage. Upgrade your harpoon, which you use to pull guys out of their vehicles, which is literally the best, as you like impale them with your harpoon and then launch them out of the driver's seat. There is an emphasis on the vehicles themselves in this game because in the world of Mad Max, vehicles are probably the most revered pieces of equipment that a person can have. Max actually has a good line in this game where he basically explains why he has such a connection with his car, and he says, cars are loyal. They'll do what you say and they won't betray you. Kind of. Like, that's not verbatim what he says, but more or less, like, yeah, this is something that you can call your own. It always has your back. It's always going to be there. So you got to kind of take care of it. You got to give it fuel, which is another thing in this game. Another way of the survival aspect and this resource management where sometimes you have to go out and you have to get some fuel. I personally think that the world of Mad Max is so perfectly executed in this game. It feels like a game that exists in the Mad Max world. In a lot of ways that the Star Wars Battlefront beta feels like a game that belongs in the Star Wars universe. There are some issues with the game, one of which is the story, and it's actually very similar to the points that I made about Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, where the beginning portion of the story are really confusing and really kept vague, and then the second half starts to pick up and become more interesting. Because there was only one character that I actually connected to in this game, and that character was introduced toward the end of the game. But nobody else in this game, you could turn around, like even Chum Bucket. I didn't care about Chum Bucket as a character. He was just useful. If he turned around in like let's just say, for example, I'm in this game for about 5 hours. I've already met Chum Bucket because you meet him, like one of the first things you do is you meet him. But after 5 hours of playing, if I were to start up the game and all of a sudden Chum Bucket got shot and he just got like the worst death handling ever. Like he died for no reason, just got sniper, boom, dead. I wouldn't care. I have no connection to Chum Bucket himself. The only thing that would actually aggravate me about him being killed is that I wouldn't have a guy that would fix my car all the time. And there are other characters too, like G and Gut Gash. I didn't care about any of them. But there was one character, I'm not going to tell you who the character is because it's kind of a spoiler, but basically that character I did care for. But that was like at the later half of the game, like toward the end even. Now looking back, there is like a sort of underlining plot in the beginning of this game. Same thing with Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. There was an underlining plot that went through. But again, things are kept very vague. There's a really kind of throwaway line at the beginning of the opening cinematic of the game where basically they say that Max is trying to do everything because he wants to go out to the Plains of Silence. He just basically wants to get a car and drive out there. It's a throwaway line in the opening cutscene of the game, and you don't even think about it until it gets brought up a lot later, where Max is starting to talk about, like, that's what he wants to do. And then I'm like, oh, well, that's what we've been doing the whole time. All that time before that, I'm sitting here and I'm like, what am I doing? I don't have the motivation to be doing whatever it is that I happen to be doing right now. Like, I don't know why I'm killing these guys. I don't know why I'm going after this thing or trying to find this thing. It's like, I don't know. The story was a struggle. It was. But going back to the original point of the video, which is saying that Mad Max's very standard procedure is basically on two fronts. It's the open world, which is very standard procedure, and the combat, which is very Batman Arkham style. Because a lot of games are starting to do that now. A lot of the WB games are doing this. They're adapting that, kind of mechanic that they know has been proven to work. But I think Mad Max kind of failed to really kind of innovate in a way. And what I mean by that is, like, even Batman Arkham Knight had a lot of combos. A lot of different enemies required a different kind of string of combos in order to overcome that specific enemy. For example, there were a lot of enemies in Batman Arkham Knight where they had a shield, but I had to hit a couple of buttons a certain way to get Batman to flip over the guy, then strike him from behind before I could actually do damage to him. Same sort of thing in Shadow of Mordor. You had to hit a couple of different prompts in order to overcome a certain type of enemy. There were combos. There was depth to the actual gameplay. But in Mad Max, it's really kind of dumbed down. You strike with X, you parry or counter with Y when the Y button pops up. As you build up a hit streak, you enable Fury mode, which means that Max does a lot more damage and then will actually be able to enable him to use some other abilities if you unlock that ability, which again, you use Scrap to unlock different skills that Max can use. But other than that, there is no depth to the combat. You fight everybody the exact same way. You may evade a couple of times, but other than that, you're basically just striking at these guys. You're mashing X the whole time. Maybe once in a while, you fire your shotgun, which a lot of times in certain situations, yeah, that's useful when you're fighting early on, when you're fighting a lot of shield-wielding enemies, and you basically have to roll out of the way and fire your shotgun when their back is turned in order to take them down quickly. But eventually you unlock the ability to just simply hit A when you've staggered them a little bit, and then you can just keep punching it until the shield explodes. So it's like the combat, I feel like they just took the basic aspect of what a Batman Arkham combat is and they just applied it. They failed to kind of make it much more in-depth or make it unique to Mad Max, which is one of the things that I think a lot of people should start doing with a lot of these blueprint kind of game development. If you're gonna take something that has been used before, if you're gonna take a groundwork for a kind of mechanic style that you're going to go for, you might as well kind of change it to make it unique to that game. Where like, yes, for the most part, it is inspired by the Batman Arkham games, but this is the Mad Max kind of combat. This is what feels unique to Mad Max. And it aggravates me because there were a lot of opportunities in which this game could have been better. More specifically, the top dog battles. I talk about this in the review. I was really not a huge fan of how they dealt with these top dog battles. Basically, what a top dog battle is that there are these camps that are littered throughout the area, and each one has a top dog that is like, this is the head honcho of the region. By taking him out, you'll lower the threat level, you'll overtake the base, your allies will move in, they'll take control of the base, give you scrap over time. But in order to take these camps down, you have to take out the top dog. And the top dog, copy and paste once again. They're just giant dudes with a stupid mask that has like this giant melee weapon that they swing around. And the strategy to fight them is the exact same. And it's not even top dogs in general. It's pretty much every boss battle except for maybe two. And those two are linked to the main story of the game. But most other boss battles are these big guys that swing around something heavy. All you have to do is dodge them and then just strike at them. My strategy was always, oh, okay, they got a little red lightning over their head. I'm going to hit the right bumper. X, 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 X. He swings his weapon again. I'm going to evade. X, 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 X. X, rinse and repeat. And I remember thinking when I did the first top dog, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I figured out the strategy to beat this boss. It took a couple of tries, but once I figured out the strategy, I was able to beat him. Then the next top dog, I was like, all right, I got to figure out the strategy to fight this guy. Nope, exact same guy, exact same strategy, except this guy doesn't just have leather on him. He now has paint splattered on top of him. That makes him different. To me, you really could have just embraced the different kind of things that you could do with the top dogs. Make this game feel a lot more filled, or a lot more kind of add flavor to it, I guess you could say. Now, the open world itself is also very standard procedure. There are a lot of other games that are starting to do this same sort of feature with the open world. A lot of other games are starting to embrace this free roaming sandbox game. But they're all doing what has been proven to work, and it's the Assassin's Creed kind of open world, where you have vantage points that you can use to unlock certain areas of the map, and then by unlocking certain areas of the map, you see other missions that you can complete. Like, the one thing that I always say about open world games is that you always have to fill it with things to do, and this one does. I think games have kind of figured out that you can't do what Red Dead Redemption did. As great as Red Dead Redemption was for its narrative and its gameplay, very empty open world, very boring open world. But the open world in Mad Max is divided up by territories, and each territory has a threat level that starts at 5, and as you take out other camps, enemy camps, take out scarecrows, take out snipers, and do other things to help your allies retake the region a little bit, it lowers the threat level. As you lower the threat level, you will unlock different upgrades that you'll be able to use for your car. That gave me some incentive to do things. Like, there was a reason why I wanted to take out every scarecrow I saw, or I wanted to pop every sniper that I saw. Because I'm looking at the upgrades for my car, and I say to myself, like, okay, well, I want to give my car better armor, but in order to do that, I have to lower this guy's territory to a level 3 threat level before I'll be able to actually use that upgrade. I'm not so much aggravated with the open world of Mad Max because, like, it does it well. But even still, it takes something that has been proven to work and just applies it here. At the end of the day, when you look at Mad Max as a whole, you look at it and you say to yourself, well, it took the license of Mad Max and it actually depicted it really well in this game. The open world was competent enough, and even though the gameplay of the combat was good and it was well executed, I wish that they had built upon it more to try to make it feel more unique, or at least make it feel like they put a little bit more of an effort rather than just copy and pasting it. So who would I recommend Mad Max for? Well, I'm going to recommend it to the fans of the Mad Max film series. Because if you ever wanted to be Mad Max, if you ever wanted to be in his boots and be in that world, surviving, fighting the war boys, and just existing in that world, this game does that really well. But as far as looking for a game that does something different and unique, it's not this game. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.